I created a guide on how to play the dual blades, give tips on how to lower hunt times, and maximize potential with the dual blades by basically knowing how to choose your gameplay depending upon the different scenarios that happen in a hunt. I always like to think that in order to maximize potential with any weapon in any hunt, I have three concepts to understand. You have to know the weapon, know the monster, and know the loadout. Now, what do I mean by this? Well, with the monster, this is understanding how to react based on certain attacks. Also understanding the heartbeat of the monster and how the monster's health is dictated based on it. It's slightly different in a non-enraged state compared to that of an enraged state, but this gives an idea on how roughly to read the monster. A monster is also capturable a slight bit before the skull icon appears too, so learning to see the flatline and how to capture is worthwhile. With the loadout, this is about what is the optimal equipment, what skills are active when, what you want on your radial menu and item loadout, and the area, if you can take advantage of any environmental damage. For example, in Area 4 of the Oil Well Basin, the Ancient Forge does a flat 5.6% damage of a monster's HP. However, in this video, I want to explicitly talk about the weapon itself, dual blades. With dual blades, you have to manage stamina, the demon gauge, in order to retain Arch Demon mode throughout the fight, demon boost mode, and since it's a melee weapon, sharpness too. In this video, I wanted to cover what the optimal combo for gauge gain is, the optimal combo for damage is, and to try and understand and explain what demon boost mode actually does. To look for these, I wanted to explain how damage is calculated in Wilds. Well, it's just damage equals physical damage plus elemental damage. To calculate physical damage, we have the raw damage multiplied by the hit zone value divided by 100, multiplied by the motion value divided by 100, and multiplied by the sharpness multiplier. The raw damage is calculated using the weapon's base raw, the damage in-game for each weapon when shown without the coefficient, plus any additional raw from any skills such as Adrenaline Rush. The hit zone values are based on each monster and can be found online on websites such as Kid and Eco. The motion value is calculated for every individual hit of a weapon, and so a particular move has a combined motion value. The sharpness multiplier is a multiplier which is dictated based on what sharpness color you have. It is worth noting that if a hit is regarded as a critical hit, which is a probability depending on your affinity, then there is an extra multiplier called the critical multiplier, and this depends on your level of critical boost. Now onto elemental damage. This is calculated by finding the elemental raw divided by 10, multiplied by the monster's elemental hit zone value divided by 100, multiplied by the elemental motion value, which is a new addition to Monster Hunter, and finally multiplied by the elemental sharpness multiplier. To find the elemental raw, this is the base element for the weapon plus any additional element from any skills such as coalescence. It should be known that if a hit is deemed critical, you can gain extra element only depending upon the level of the skill critical element, but in all honesty, this skill is not worth it. To keep it simple, when calculating damage for the analysis, I've used a perfect Artian roll, which is optimal for all weapons bar thunder at the time of this video, i.e. 3 times attack for the set element with the rolls 1 time sharpness boost and 4 times attack, yielding a base raw of 225, a base element of 270, and an affinity of 5% with white sharpness. I've also used the hit zone values of the training dummy, which has a hit zone value of 80 and an elemental hit zone value of 30, which is actually really high for both, but for the sake of simplicity, I've used this in the calculation. When in demon mode, your Y and B attacks will cause the gauge to increase. Once maxed initially, you'll be able to transform into Arch Demon mode, which realistically you want to achieve at the start of every hunt. For Y attacks, we have the Demon Fangs, 2-fold Demon Slash, and 6-fold Demon Slash. For B attacks, we have Demon Flurry Rush, Round Slash, and Double Round Slash. Since damage is arbitrary, then I will use Demon Fangs as a multiplier of 1, and the rest will be shown as a multiple of that. So for example, 2-fold Demon Slash is 1.63 times the damage, with the same time of 38 milliseconds. The amount that each attack changes the gauge is also different, and it should be known that the maximum gauge is not 100, but from my testing seems to be approximately 122. When looking at the analysis, we can clearly see that the Y string of attacks are best, for damage and for gauge gain. But there are scenarios which do benefit other moves such as Demon Flurry Rush. I also wanted to see how does the Corrupted Mantle change these results. Well, a brief explanation of the Corrupted Mantle is that it works by granting 5% affinity and drains health until enough damage is dealt, then increases attack by approximately 4.3% and increases affinity by an additional 5%. It also grants additional hits to certain attacks. In general, these are your Y attacks, but not exclusively so, as Demon Flurry Rush is also boosted by the Corrupted Mantle. Therefore, there are new DPS numbers, and the gauge gain will change significantly too, where we see the largest increase in damage and gauge gain by twofold Demon Slash. So, in conclusion, the Y combo is your best bet. Demon Flurry Rush is actually great at repositioning, and I would avoid the double round slash at all costs. However, when gaining gauge at the start of each fight, the likelihood is that every monster will have a slightly different opening. For example, with New Udra, after a sneak attack, you can fit the whole Y combo into a perfect evade to get Demon Boost mode, which might I add, is actually optimal to get at the start of each fight using the first Raw. And you will be able to finish with Screw Slicer, Demon Fangs and twofold Demon Slash, and now full gauge is acquired very shortly into the fight. I must give an honourable mention to the new Focus Strike follow-up Turning Tide Drill, since whilst it doesn't deal the same DPS as the full Y combo, it is a guaranteed combo with 60.5 gauge gain, and the stamina management is excellent. The attacks that will deal the highest DPS are the Y plus B attacks. When in Demon mode, you can perform Blade Dance 1, 2 and 3, and in Arch Demon mode, you can perform Demon Flurry 1 and 2. It should be noted that you can perform Demon Flurry 1 and 2 in a neutral stance and directionally by using WASD or by using the movement stick on controller. I've also added Perfect Evade and Screw Slicer into the mix. Again, using Demon Fangs as our 1x multiple, you can see how the damage compares for each move. Blade Dance 1 and 3 have significantly higher damage but also take longer. Demon Flurry 2 in the neutral stance is a move that I would avoid, and if ever performing Demon Flurry 2, use it to reposition yourself in the midst of a monster's attack before committing into Blade Dance 3, which can take a long time to complete. For example, on my 9-star 5 difficulty speedrun of Uth Duna, you can see how I reposition myself on Uth Duna's tail slam by our hind legs in order to complete the full Blade Dance combo and keep up the aggression. When comparing the gauge change, you lose 5 at the first level, 10 at the second, and 15 at the last. In terms of DPS, Screw Slicer reigns as the highest value DPS for any move in the complete moveset of the Dual Blades. However, you can only perform Screw Slicer after a Perfect Evade, which will dramatically decrease the DPS. And then, Demon Flurry 1 in the neutral is second, and Blade Dance 2 is in third. So when looking at the combos, we can see that the highest DPS potential is Demon Flurry 1 in the neutral state, followed by Blade Dance 2 and 3. Now, for context, to measure the time of each move and combo, I measured the frame count whilst the game was playing at 60 FPS. The action of going into Demon mode is 50 frames, so it takes 83 milliseconds, and to transform from Demon mode to Arch Demon mode is 35 frames, and so it's 58 milliseconds. Even with this, when you finish Blade Dance 3, it is still better DPS to come out of Demon mode into Arch Demon mode and continue into Demon Flurry 1 neutrally, then into Blade Dance 2 and 3, provided you have the correct amount of gauge and the monster is down. However, if you're already in Demon mode at the start, use Blade Dance 1 first and then switch into Demon Flurry 1 in the neutral stance and then back to Blade Dance 2 and 3. I do believe that whilst it may take slightly longer to perform, Demon Flurry 1, whilst travelling directionally, is still a great and viable option for minutely changing positions, and if needed, use Demon Flurry 2 directionally to avoid attacks too. The best gap closer is Perfect Evade into Screw Slicer, and whilst it is slightly lower DPS, it does allow you to go straight into Blade Dance 1 or Demon Flurry 1 immediately. Plus, you will regain gauge if you land any hits. If you are short on time, Perfect Evade into Blade Dance 2 and 3 is your best option if you've dodged through an attack. However, to be honest, all 8 of these combinations are useful in certain scenarios and should be used. It's all about keeping aggression of the monster. It should be known that Corrupted Mantle does not change the damage of Screw Slicer, even though it's a Y attack. If you dodge into an attack in Demon mode, then you will do a Perfect Evade, and the first Perfect Evade will activate Demon Boost mode. This will activate for 20 seconds. The second Perfect Evade extends the duration by 12 seconds, the third by 8 seconds, and any more does not extend the timer until you reset the initial one. Power Prolonger can extend this timer by 1.3 times, 1.5 times, and 1.8 times depending on level. In Demon mode, you have an increased movement speed of an extra 16%, and the distance dodged is increased by 17%. With the knowledge that in Arch Demon mode, the Demon Boost mode dodge will drain gauge by 10 each time, plus you won't travel as far, to gap close it is much more beneficial to be in Demon mode if stamina allows. Another tip is that each level of evade window will extend the Demon Boost mode evade by 5%. So if you're struggling, evade window is your best friend. When in Demon Boost mode, your physical damage will be buffed by 1.15 times raw as a pre-modifier, and elemental damage will be buffed by 1.3 times element as a post-modifier. A damage pre-modifier means it will affect the weapon's base raw, and any additional raw from skills will be added afterwards, whilst an elemental post-modifier means it will affect the weapon's element after the additional element from the skills is added. Therefore, it is clear, if the Demon Boost mode is active, you will get a large increase in damage, and on average, this is around 10%. In reality, whether skills are active, there are changing monster hit zones, different sharpness levels, affinity and the chance to land a critical hit. This will all change the damage that you deal. However, this analysis will still hold true for the majority of scenarios. Therefore, in conclusion, the optimal gauge building combo is your standard Y combo, Demon Fangs through to 6-fold Demon Slash, with Demon Flurry Rush being a great move to reposition yourself. The optimal combo for damage is Demon Flurry 1 in the neutral state into Blade Dance 2 and 3. Do note that if you are in Demon mode, Blade Dance 1 is still a solid option, and Demon Flurry 1 and 2 are great at directionally moving to reposition yourself. Keep uptime on Demon Boost mode as much as possible, and keep white sharpness up too. If you drop to blue, you will lose 9% damage on average, which isn't huge, but it does add up if you forget to sharpen. However, for the true damage boost, if you want to get the fastest hunts, don't forget to pet Poogie.